My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm 32 years old. And until one sentence appeared on my phone at 9:14 p.m. on a Tuesday, I believe my life was inconvenient, but stable. That sentence didn't come with a phone call, or a warning, or even punctuation that suggested hesitation. Claire, I'm overwhelmed. The wedding. Us. Everything. I need a break to sort out my feelings. Please don't contact me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. No, I'm sorry. No discussion. No timeline. Just a unilateral pause on a shared life. I stared at the message for a full minute, waiting for my heart to react. It didn't. That should have scared me. But instead, something else took over. The part of my brain that manages timelines, risk mitigation, and contingency planning. I'm a project coordinator. That's not just my job, it's how I think. For the past 4 years, my biggest project had been my engagement to Daniel Foster, 34. Marketing consultant, image-driven, charismatic when it suited him. The wedding, an extravagant fall affair, had ballooned into a logistical monster, mostly controlled by his mother Linda, who treated the event like a corporate rebrand for her family. Daniel handled the vision. Linda handled the opinions. I handled the payments. I told myself the imbalance was temporary. Pre-wedding stress. Nerves. That was my first mistake. Because when a key stakeholder vanishes without notice, you don't freeze the operation. You terminate. So I replied with one word. Okay. Then I did exactly what he asked. I went silent. That night, I opened our shared wedding binder and created a new spreadsheet. Project status terminated. The first call went to the venue, the Regal Crest Hotel. I spoke calmly, acknowledged the $15,000 non-refundable deposit, asked for cancellation paperwork. The coordinator mentioned, almost apologetically, that if the date rebooked, 75% could be refunded. I thanked her. One down. The photographer, the florist, the caterer, the band. Each call was polite, final, emotionless. By Friday, every contract in my name was gone. The loss hurt. Over $12,000 evaporated, but it felt cleaner than waiting in emotional limbo. The final step was personal. The engagement ring. A family heirloom from my grandmother. I drove straight to the bank and locked it in a safe deposit box. Somewhere in the middle of that transaction, it hit me. He didn't ask for space. He asked for control. And control only works if the other person waits. 4 weeks passed. Then my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. A text followed seconds later. Claire, I'm ready to talk. I miss you. We can fix this. I'm ready to get back to planning. Call me. I called back. His voice was bright, casual, like I'd been on hold. Claire, I was so happy to see your name. I just needed clarity. We should schedule the menu tasting. Mom's already stressing. There's no tasting, I said. Silence. What do you mean? The venue's canceled. So is the photographer, the florist, everything. His breath hitched. You canceled everything? You told me not to contact you. A wedding requires full commitment. You withdrew. I shut it down. Panic bled through his voice. You weren't supposed to do that. That's when I knew. He never thought I'd move. He thought I'd wait. And the showdown had just begun. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was second-guessing myself, but because my nervous system was still catching up to the reality my brain had already accepted. When you end something big, you expect grief to arrive first. What I felt was vigilance, the kind you get after a near-miss car accident. The wreck didn't happen, but your hands won't stop shaking anyway. At 8:03 a.m., my phone buzzed again. We need to talk in person. Open the door when I get there. No, please, no can we. Just a command. I didn't reply. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen counter and opened my laptop. The spreadsheet still there. Columns neat, color-coded, merciless. Vendor deposit refund policy, status, notes. I stared at the numbers and reminded myself. This wasn't punishment. This was risk management. Still, under the calm logic, there was a bruise of humiliation I couldn't ignore. Because he hadn't just asked for a break. He'd done it like I was a subscription. He could pause. And now he was coming back expecting to press play. At 9:27 a.m., the doorbell rang. Once. Then again. Then a sustained push that felt like someone trying to force my life open. I looked through the peephole. Daniel stood in the hallway in a crisp navy jacket that screamed planned. Beside him was Linda Foster. Perfect hair, pearls, sunglasses indoors, her posture already shaped like a courtroom. My stomach tightened. Of course he brought his mother. Of course he needed an audience. I opened the door but kept the chain on. Linda didn't even wait for a greeting. What is the meaning of this childish stunt? She snapped, like I dented her car. Daniel leaned forward, his jaw tight. Claire, unlock the door. No, I said simply. Linda's eyes widened, like she hadn't heard that word in years. You can't do this, she said. Do you understand how much this wedding represents? How many people are involved? My friends are flying in. I'm aware, I replied. That's why I canceled. Daniel's voice rose, sharp with disbelief. You did it to punish me. I did it because you told me to disappear, I said, still calm. So I did. And while I was gone, I did the only thing a sane adult does when their fiancé walks away from an agreement. Linda scoffed. Agreement? This is a relationship, not a business contract. I felt something cold settle in my chest. That's funny, I said, because you both treated it exactly like a business until I applied the same rules. Daniel shoved his fingers through his hair, frustration bleeding into panic. Claire, I said I needed space. Space doesn't mean destroy everything. You didn't say space. You said don't contact me, and I'll reach out when I'm ready. That's not space, I said. That's control. Linda stepped forward like the chain was the only thing keeping her from physically entering my apartment and rearranging my reality. You're overreacting, she hissed. My son was stressed. Men get overwhelmed. You women don't understand the pressure. I cut in, voice still low but sharper now. Don't, I said. Don't turn this into a lecture about women and men. Your son chose a break. He chose silence. He chose to leave me holding the obligations alone. Daniel's eyes flashed. I didn't leave you. I needed to sort out my feelings. Where did you go to sort them out? I asked. The question landed like a stone. Daniel's face changed, just slightly. Linda stiffened too, her mouth tightening, like she suddenly remembered she didn't have the full script. Excuse me, Daniel said. You heard me, I said. You didn't go to your brother's. You didn't go to your dad's. You didn't go anywhere you could have told me about without violating your own no-contact rule. Daniel's throat worked. I went away, he said quickly. With who? I asked. His gaze flicked to the side. A tiny tell. Then he said too fast, with Connor, a guy's trip. Connor. A friend I'd met maybe twice. The name felt pasted on. Linda jumped in before I could respond. This is none of your business, she snapped, and that was the moment my suspicion went from a hunch to a certainty. Because if Daniel had gone on a normal trip, Linda would have used it as a weapon. He was clearing his head. He was suffering. He was doing the responsible thing. Instead, she shut it down. That's what you do when the truth is inconvenient. I nodded slowly, like I was filing that detail away in a folder labeled Lies. Okay, I said again. Daniel blinked. What? Okay, I repeated. You went away. You sorted out your feelings. Now you're back. And I'm telling you, this project is closed. Linda's voice went nuclear. You will call those vendors right now and reverse this. I can't, I said. The hotel date has already been rebooked. Daniel froze. What do you mean rebooked? It's an October Saturday, I said. They don't sit on those dates. A corporate event took it within days. Linda sucked in a breath like she'd been slapped. No, she said, voice trembling with anger. No, that is impossible. That hotel knows who we are. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. The hotel doesn't care who you are, I said. They care who pays, and the contract was in my name. Daniel's face paled. You didn't even talk to me. You told me not to, I said. The hallway went thick with silence for half a beat. Then Daniel surged forward until his face was inches from the chain. Unlock the door, he said low. We're fixing this. We're not fixing anything, I replied. You're picking up your things. Linda's eyes widened again. His things? She repeated, outraged. This is his home too. It's my lease, I said. He moved in when we got engaged. His name is not on the paperwork. Daniel's voice cracked. Claire, what are you doing? I felt the first real wave of emotion rise. Not sadness, not longing. Disgust. Because this was the moment he expected the old Claire to appear. The accommodating one. The one who smoothed things over. The one who apologized when she didn't even know what she'd done wrong yet. But I didn't feel like that woman anymore. What I should have done the day you sent that text, I said quietly. Linda's lips curled. So you're throwing away 4 years because he had a moment of doubt? You know how ridiculous you sound? That's the thing, I said. It wasn't doubt. Doubt is when someone comes to you and says, I'm scared. Can we talk? Daniel swallowed. This was a dismissal, I continued. A pause button. A test. Daniel flinched at that word. A test, Linda scoffed. But I wasn't talking to her. I looked at Daniel. You didn't break up with me, I said. You put me on a shelf, and you assumed I'd stay there until you decided if I was still worth marrying. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Linda snapped, furious. You are going to give us back the deposit money, she said. At minimum. You will reimburse our losses. I blinked slowly. No, I said. Linda's face went red. Daniel tried again, softer now. Claire, listen. You're hurt. I get it, but we can salvage this. We can move the date. Find another venue. That's not the point, I cut in. The point is, I can't marry someone who thinks commitment is optional. A muscle jumped in Daniel's cheek. Linda stepped in like a general taking the floor. My son proposed to you, she said. He chose you. Do you realize how many women would— Stop, I said. Linda paused. I don't care how many women would accept scraps, I said. I'm not one of them. The air in the hallway crackled. Then Daniel's voice dropped, sharp with a different angle now. My ring, he said. I stilled. There it was. Not us, not sorry, not I miss you. The asset. Give it back, he demanded. You can't just keep it. I exhaled slowly through my nose, keeping my voice level. You mean my grandmother's ring? Daniel frowned. I proposed with it. You proposed with it because my grandmother left it to me, I said. It's my family heirloom. Linda leaned forward like she smelled blood. It was given as a gift, she said. It belongs to my son now, technically. He placed it on your finger. A conditional gift, I said. The condition was marriage. Daniel's eyes narrowed. That's not a thing. It's a very real thing, I said. And either way, it's not here. Linda snapped. Where is it? In a safe deposit box, I said. Daniel's face twisted. You locked it away? He spat like I'd committed a crime. I met his eyes steadily. Yes, I said, because I knew the moment you came back, you would treat it like leverage. Linda's mouth opened in outrage. You're calling my son manipulative? I'm calling him predictable, I replied. For the first time, Daniel looked truly rattled, not angry, not offended, afraid, because he could feel the power shifting, and he didn't know how to stop it. Linda recovered first. She always did. She pointed a manicured finger at the chain, like it was the obstacle between her and the life she felt entitled to. You will regret this, she hissed. We will get lawyers. We will ruin you. Daniel's voice came in, quick, desperate. Claire, just open the door. Let's talk like adults. I stared at him, and I realized something that made my stomach go cold. He still believed I'd fold if he sounded reasonable. He still thought he had access to me. I shook my head once. You had 4 weeks to talk like an adult, I said. You chose silence. Then I added, quietly, pointedly, and you chose something else too. Daniel froze. Linda's eyes flicked to him, fast, suspicious. Daniel's jaw tightened, like he was trying to hold a secret in place with sheer force. I didn't push. Not yet, because the truth was going to matter most when they were already desperate. I slid my phone out of my pocket and held it up. I'm going to say this once, I said. Text me a time you want to pick up your things. I'll have them boxed. You'll collect them from the building lobby. Linda scoffed. He's not leaving. He is, I said. Daniel's breathing changed. A subtle shift. He was realizing he might lose the apartment, the wedding, the story he'd been rehearsing in his head where he returned, and I cried and forgave him. He swallowed hard. You're really doing this, he whispered. Yes, I said. Linda's face hardened. Fine, she said. Then we'll do it the hard way. She spun on her heel and started toward the elevator like she'd already drafted the lawsuit in her mind. Daniel hesitated, his gaze still on me, as if he was waiting for a crack. A plea. A tremble. But my face stayed still. Finally, he stepped back. Then, right before the elevator doors closed, Linda fired her final shot. You will not find someone better than my son. The door shut. The hallway went silent. I slid the chain off and locked every bolt anyway. Then I leaned my forehead against the wood and let the tiniest tremor run through me, just enough to remind myself I was still human. That was the confrontation. But it wasn't the war, because by noon, the dirty tactics began. I was halfway through a status meeting the next morning when my phone vibrated again. Not a text, not a call, an email notification from HR Compliance. Subject, confidential matter, immediate attention required. My stomach dropped, not with panic, but with recognition. Because when people like Linda don't get their way, they don't argue louder. They escalate sideways. I excused myself from the meeting, closed my office door, and opened the email. An anonymous complaint had been filed through the ethics hotline. It claimed my unstable personal situation was creating a toxic work environment. It questioned my emotional fitness to manage high-risk projects. It implied I was distracted, volatile, unreliable. I read it twice, then a third time. Then I exhaled slowly and felt something snap into place. Not fear, not anger. Resolve. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was an attempt to ruin my career. I forwarded the email to my director and requested a meeting immediately. Within an hour, I was sitting across from HR and leadership, my hands folded neatly on the table. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself emotionally. I laid out facts. I believe this complaint is retaliatory, I said calmly. It coincides exactly with the termination of my engagement. My former fiancé and his mother were explicit about ruining me when I enforced boundaries. I provided a redacted timeline. The breakup text, the 4 weeks of silence, the cancellations, the confrontation. My work record spoke louder than anything else. 5 years, 0 incidents, consistent promotions, strong peer reviews. The HR manager nodded slowly. "We're required to investigate," she said, "but this reads personal." I knew what she meant. This wasn't concern. It was spite. By the end of the meeting, the tone had shifted. They weren't suspicious of me. They were suspicious of the complaint. As I left the room, something settled in my chest. Daniel and Linda thought they were rattling me. What they'd actually done was confirm I was right to walk away. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Linda, except it wasn't sent from her account. It came from Daniel's father, Richard Foster. Subject line, regarding outstanding financial matters. I opened it. The tone was formal, artificially calm. They demanded reimbursement for their share of all lost wedding deposits, plus additional compensation for severe emotional distress and public embarrassment. I laughed, out loud, not because it was funny, but because it was delusional. They wanted me to pay for the consequences of Daniel walking away. I forwarded the email to Marianne Thompson, the attorney I'd already consulted after the hallway confrontation. Her reply came back within 20 minutes. "This is harassment. Do not respond directly. I'll handle it." 2 hours later, the absurdity escalated. A courier showed up at my building with an envelope. Inside was an itemized invoice totaling $28,450. They had retroactively charged me for backdated rent for Daniel living in my apartment, a $5,000 interior design consultation for furniture he didn't even like, a $10,000 fee for emotional support and household coordination. At the bottom, a demand for the engagement ring, valued, according to them, at $40,000. I stared at the paper, stunned. They weren't grieving. They were rewriting history, turning our relationship into a service contract where I owed them. Marianne called me that evening. "This is amateur intimidation," she said dryly, "but we're not ignoring it." That's when she found it. Daniel had registered a new event styling business, using my apartment address as the official business location, without my knowledge, without permission. My pulse slowed, because suddenly the game changed. Marianne drafted a cease and desist letter that was surgical. It demanded immediate removal of my address from all business filings, required written proof within 15 days, declared all business mail would be returned to sender. It reaffirmed the ring as a non-negotiable conditional gift, attaching a certified appraisal valuing it at $14,000, and noted their inflated claim could constitute fraud. It documented every act of harassment, emails, the HR complaint, the invoice, and it gave Daniel 10 days to schedule a supervised pickup of his belongings from the building's loading dock. No negotiation, no access to me. When Richard replied, his tone was suddenly conciliatory. "This has gone too far," he wrote. "Let's just return the ring and move on." I responded once. "Your family attempted to sabotage my career, besieged my home, and tried to extort me. This is now handled by counsel. The ring is not negotiable." He never replied again. Pickup day was set for Saturday. I spent the week packing every trace of Daniel's life, methodical, detached. As I sealed the last box, something strange happened. My apartment felt quiet. Not empty. Mine. They thought pressure would make me fold. They didn't realize I'd already let go. And once you do that, there's nothing left to take from you. 3 months. That's how long it took for the noise to finally die. Not with a bang. Not with a courtroom showdown. Just silence. Pickup day came and went without drama. Daniel didn't show. 2 movers arrived instead, middle-aged, efficient, uninterested in the emotional wreckage attached to the 27 boxes they hauled out of the loading dock. I watched from the lobby, hands in my coat pockets, feeling oddly detached. He couldn't even face me. And somehow, that told me everything I needed to know. After that, the threat stopped. The cease and desist worked better than I expected. The fraud implications scared them. The business address issue panicked Daniel because it wasn't just embarrassing, it was actionable. Bullies crumble when you document them. A week later, HR formally closed the complaint. Malicious and unsubstantiated, the email read. No disciplinary action, no mark on my record. If anything, it strengthened my standing. My director later told me he admired how calmly I handled the situation. Daniel tried to spin the breakup socially. According to mutual acquaintances, he told people I'd gotten cold feet and abandoned him over stress. The story didn't last. One of Linda's close friends happened to be married to a senior executive at my company. He'd heard about the anonymous complaint. He'd watched my performance stay steady. The pieces didn't fit. The truth leaked out, quietly at first, then all at once. For people obsessed with image, public inconsistency is fatal. Financially, the fallout crushed them. Non-refundable deposits. The designer suit Daniel bought. The rehearsal dinner Linda had already paid for. 6 groomsmen outfits ordered and never worn. Tens of thousands gone. Daniel's event styling business collapsed before it launched. Clients don't trust someone whose professional address is their ex-fiancé's apartment. Last I heard, he moved back in with his parents. The final truth came from an old college friend. He'd seen Daniel at an airport during the 4-week break. He wasn't with friends. He was with his ex, the woman he'd always described as toxic, the one he swore he'd never go back to. The realization hit softly, but settled deep. The break wasn't for reflection. It was a test drive. He wanted to see if his old life still fit, while keeping me on standby as the safe option. When it didn't work, he came back expecting forgiveness. Instead, he found consequences. My life is quiet now. The $12,000 loss still stings, but I call it a liberation fee. I sold the rug Daniel insisted on buying and replaced it with one I actually like. My grandmother's ring is still in the bank. It doesn't feel cursed anymore. My cousin just got engaged, young, in love, scraping by. I gave them the ring. Let it start a story built on mutual choice, not entitlement. The revenge wasn't loud. It was precise. He asked for no contact, so I gave him a world of silence. They thought they could bully me into submission. They forgot something important. They weren't dealing with an emotional mess. They were dealing with a project coordinator. And when a project is doomed, you cut losses. You document everything, and you move forward. My next project is me. And for the first time in years, the future looks clear.